signed up for your game. For me it was all the same. I didn't see a heart and hand till it was too late to understand. I thought we were having fun. All I did was leave you waiting for diamonds. I made a move and you made two. Maybe you had something to prove. You took a turn into fire, and it burned higher and higher. Oh, I tried to tragedies by the score. There were days that you and I wanted to choose, but we were too far gone to be the one to in the end, beyond the tears, love was lost with the years. I tried to be one. All I did was leave you waiting for diamonds. Overrated, underrated, Prince. I've read, I think, between 6 and 8 books on the life of Prince. To this day, I believe that Prince is incredibly underrated. Yes, he's loved around the world, but have we forgotten this great artist? I was a fan of his from when I was a little kid watching Purple Rain in the movie theaters, when he was releasing Kiss, the Parade album, and then in the 90s when he was writing Slave on his face. I didn't understand it at the time, but he was revolutionary even then. And then I came across an album called Crystal Ball, which contained within it an acoustic album called The Truth. He had written that album right after he had discovered his son had died. He was a workaholic and he put all of his emotions into his work. I didn't know any of that when I discovered this album. When I discovered the Truth album, all I heard was that it was an acoustic album of the great artist Prince. an acoustic album. Think about that. Just voice and guitar, a couple harmonies, some little sound effects here and there, but very raw and almost naked. And in that setting, Prince was still a genius, still incredible. And let's talk about his guitar playing. Some of those guitar solos that Prince played, most guitar players would stay away from that. They would, a lot of people stay away from the style of guitar that Prince made famous. That cry, that bend cry, that's no joke. That's serious. That takes serious skill. He was an underrated guitar player. And you think I'm just a fanboy? You can Google Steve Vai's opinion of Prince's guitar playing. He was a smoking, red-hot guitar player. Prince, incredibly underrated. While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Rest in peace, Tom Petty. So they're staying really true to the form. Great groove. Love that drummer. And Harrison's kid looks a lot like him. Tom Petty was amazing. That looks like Steve Winwood on the keys. Great tone on this guitar player. Divergent. Oh, a little perverted. What an entrance. Woo! Those bends are no joke. Jamming with the boys, looking at everything. Where'd that guy come from? I love the way he locked eyes with Tom Petty there. Woo! They gave him the green light. I think Prince is trying to get out of there. What an exit. What an exit. Prince, one of the most underrated guitar players of all time.
Yo, yo.
Yeah. Yes. Lee, my brother, so great to see you, man.
You too, man. Look at you.
Oh, man. Look at you. Look at you, man.
Look at you. Looking like 20 years ago.
Stop it, man. You got to zoom in. You got to get all the wrinkles here, man. All the grays. Man, see those?
Hey, listen.
Those are orange stripes right there, brother.
But that's laughter and joy, you know?
Hey, man, it beats crying,
Exactly. Let me see if I can get some better light.
Man, when was the last time we spoke, man? When was the last time?
Oh, man.
My memory was your performance at the church here in New York.
Probably, yeah.
Last time I saw you in person. We've communicated like via WhatsApp.
Yeah. I think I might have seen you at Southpaw, but the church was probably after that.
The church was definitely after that.
Sure. Yeah.
What a great performance that was, man. Oh my God.
Thanks, man. Thanks. It's come a long way since. But it's all good.
Piano playing.
Well, thank you, sir.
That's what I want to talk, man. I want to talk about. I mean, thanks for jumping on this, man, with me. No
worries, man.
I started this. I've always wanted to do a show about like my awesome musical friends.
Okay.
And I've already done 2 episodes. The first one I got my friend Michelle DeAngelis, and she was a great singer-songwriter, mother over here in New York, and it was
okay.
And you are my 3rd guest.
Oh, well,
My
thank you.
third guest, and it was weird. I'm so glad you're. I feel so grateful that you jumped on with me today, brother, because I, I after listening to the new album, man, I was really freaked out. I was
Okay.
I I didn't know what to expect. You
Okay.
never know where people are in their growth or development, or where they are with their recordings, right?
Okay. Trying to get like better light for you.
No, that's perfect. You were perfect.
Okay, where I was. All
Yeah,
right,
you
cool.
were absolutely perfect, looking like a Don. You were perfect. Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool.
And when I listened to the new record, man, like I was really knocked out. I was really knocked out. First of all, the arrangements, like the first of all, the piano playing. The piano playing, it's weird. I'm new to this whole interview process, or like just but I
And this is me and you shooting the shit over some wine at the Marlin.
okay, beautiful. Your skills on the piano and the Fender Rhodes have really jumped up a level, like a few levels. Number one. Number two, you're arranging. I don't know if you collaborated with arrangers on this, but some of the musicianship that you have on this album, I mean, it can
Yeah, that's
sing with anybody.
what's that? I'm sorry, what'd you say? What was that last sentence?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the arrangements are world class level arrangements, horns, strings. I mean, the horns and strings specifically are
Mm-hmm.
some of the greatest, like some really great arranging. I've never heard anything like that
Yeah.
from you before, ever. Like,
Thank you.
yeah, the flute.
That's
I know you've
what
had
do you call it? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know you've had flute before, but whoever's playing flute on this album is killing it.
Yeah, that's Juan Clas in Argentina. He did a lot of the arranging, like the orchestral stuff, the strings and the woods and the brass. I know him from Argentina. It's funny the way we met. It's really interesting. I haven't actually met him in person.
I love that.
So there was cats that, obviously when I lived over in Argentina, there was a lot of cats that I knew. There was I think Sebastian played trombone, Sebastian Saenz, and I reached out to him like maybe 2018, 2019, and I was like, man, can you do me a favor? Can you transcribe all my whole everything, the square egg stuff, the Lee stuff, because I want to have charts for it, and then also just how we played stuff live. So as I'm doing stuff with different musicians live, I can say, here, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
And he did that. So around the time that I was getting ready to work on this last album, the Maybe Now album, I reached out to him again and I was like, hey, are you interested in, working on some of the arrangements for this stuff? And he's like, I think he was having some health issues at the time, if I recall correctly. And he's like, but I can recommend Juan Clas. We talked for a little bit. We got on a Zoom call, and this is right around COVID, right? So right around like winter, spring of 2020, and he asked me kind of what I was looking for, what the vibe was. I let him listen to some of my previous stuff, and I was just writing. So as I would complete a song, I'd send it to him, and we bounce ideas back and forth. And it's great. It just came. Throwing aside my composing or anything, but just what he brought to it. Like you said, it took it to a whole nother level.
All of that.
So we're working together. I just started working on a new record, and we're collaborating on that as well. And a lot of cats playing on it are, a lot of the rhythm section are cats that I know from Argentina. I think Tommy Heron from Pencilgrass, if that name rings a bell, from way back in the Miami days. He's playing bass. Jay from Hash Brown plays bass on some songs. And the one you were listening to, Mike from Square Egg, Mike Renz is on that one. Yeah. So Mike, it's funny, that song that you were listening to, Harrison Bergeron, so that song I started working on probably 2012 in Bed-Stuy when I lived at 396. And it was just something I'd shelved, right? And because I had everything set up in my living room, and this is when Mike and I we just bang out ideas. I was like, come by, I got this, 2-chord little vamp, come by, play some bass on it, play some melodic stuff and just open it up. And I'm just like going through files during COVID. And I was like, man, I like that song, man. I'm gonna do something with it. Cause it ended up just being like, you heard this. It's this long, just, mood vamp. Yeah. The only thing that's not Brooklyn on there is the drums. Everything else is Brooklyn. Frank Schaub on guitar is from Brooklyn. I know him from playing with him over the years. But yeah. So I called Mike when the record was done. I actually sent him a link and I was like, oh, here you go. You're credited on this song. He's like, man, I don't even remember playing on that. I was like, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So. I love that. I mean, I've been posting a lot on social media recently about about my school, Heroes of Music Institute, but just I've been doing interviews with, and I did this video with my friend Michelle on the last podcast. I wanted to interview her. I wanted her to be my first guest, just
okay.
I think what she's had to balance in her life as a parent and as an artist. I have so much admiration for that. And I did a deep dive into her catalog.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I wonder if she's on Spotify. And I've seen Michelle live, right? I had very little interaction with her recorded history, but I've known her as a friend. I've always seen her live, and she's got this amazing voice and really powerful piano playing skills. She's been playing since she was 4.
Okay.
Like a beast, she's a beast. But I always like, she needs that record, she needs that record. But I found her on Spotify and I listened to her. I saw she had a bunch of recordings. I was like, let me go to the first one. I want to hear what was the first, where it started.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an album of hers called Angelism, and it was all there. It was everything I was thinking.
Everything that you wanted to hear was there.
It was there in her first album. And I got her on the horn. I was like, can you do an interview with me, please, today? Like, I need to talk to you about this album, because I went through the whole album. I listened to the whole album. And she was like, yeah, we talked. And one of the big takeaways from that interview with her was the importance of catalog, the importance of documenting because she was like, I love that you're enjoying those songs now, but to me, they're old, I'm in a new place. I was like, and I told her, that's why it's so important to have your work out there so that people have the opportunity to discover it.
Right.
And I was like, how come this 2016 we were friends? How come I wasn't bombarded with emails and text messages to hear this album?
Right.
And she was like, I was going through things. I put it out. I didn't like my.
Yeah. Text me her name again. I want to check it out.
Yeah.
I want to check out her stuff.
But everything she was saying about why she didn't promote it it echoed in my heart, because I've said the same thing to myself about material that I've posted or shared, and then I told her, it's not really your job to it's not really your job to critique. Once you release work, it's not your job to decide if it's good or not. Like, just put it out into the world, give people the opportunity to hear it, let them decide. But It's not your job. Look at that song. And I say that to say, look at that. The 2-chord vamp that you came up with, right? You just had in your catalog, it, and then you started going through it, and then boom, there it was. And then look what it turned into, you know? Having a catalog, documented catalog for an artist is important, but also having it available, a catalog for audiences to listen to is equally important. And you never know. You never know who comes across.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny that you say that. Like some of the stuff that obviously I've done a lot of stuff since the Square Egg, but I still love those songs, man. We had Nacho plays with me now here in Miami.
Oh my God. Amazing.
You know, and I remember when I reached out to him because I went to see him and Javier Garcia over at the Faina. And like he's like, brother, bro, you know, same Nacho, right? So, you know, we chop it up a little bit during their break. And I'm just like, hey man, I'm thinking of, you know, I'm back in town. I'm thinking of putting something back together. Would you be interested? It's like, bro, you know you don't have to ask me, bro, right? So I'm just like recruiting guys, you know, checking out the scene.
Voice,
you know.
You did
bro, man, you know you don't have to ask me, like that fucking voice, right? But you know, I'm checking out the scene here, and you know, and kind of getting an idea of who the players are that I'd like to play with. So there's a piano player that I know. He recorded on a couple albums back, and I did some shows with him here in Miami and in New York for a period when I was going back and forth. And I reached out to him, young cat, he's probably in his 30s or so, brought him over, and it was me, him, and Ignacio, and we met. And we're just sitting down, and you know, I'm playing Nacho some of the newer stuff, and he's like, man, I really love this stuff, blah blah blah. So we're just talking, and he's just like, bro, you got to do it. You got to do it. And being with him and working with him again, it gives you a newer energy for some of these old songs. You got to remember something like Feels Like Summer or A Letter From You. Those songs are 20 years old to me, you know, but people hear it and it connects with them, you know, and I have that conversation a lot with people that, like you said, you know, you put it out there and it belongs to the audience. It belongs to the listeners, and you know, if it connects with them, that's great. I've never been good at this social media and promotion stuff anyway, so it's like whatever.
I think a lot of us of our generation, I think a lot of us struggle with that, and I am so empathetic with that. Because our generation, like we hit the street, we put flyers, we talk to people, you know, it was like, hey, you know, you see a pretty girl, you give him a flyer. You see a dude that's got a, you know, he's in a funky looking, you give him a flyer. You can you go out into the street and you find your people. The transition online, I mean, this is, you know, it's a skill set. It's a different skill set. How do you navigate those waters? I've been very poor at it in instances. I have been very poor at it in the past. However, since the birth of my daughter, I don't allow myself that concession anymore. Like, yeah, I just give myself like, no. I want this school to be successful so that this other thing can be successful. So I need to work my ass off. If I need to learn this stuff, I need to learn this stuff. And then how do I learn best? How have I learned something the best? By doing it.
Right. I was going to say, just immersing yourself into it.
By doing it and how did I get to be such a great songwriter? And I say that without,
you don't have to be humble. It's you know.
How did I get to be a great songwriter? I did numbers, bro. I would just write and all day long for years and years and years and years with this person, with that person, with anybody that wanted to be in the room with me. You know, like just write. Anybody that hired me, I would give them everything.
Well, it's a muscle.
It's exactly that. It's a creative muscle. So on the promoting side, I struggled for years. I mean, years to go from street promotion to the online promotion. And now I just do it. I'm treating it the same. Just get out there, put video, think of who's watching and what do they need? What can I deliver to them? And on the artistic side, it's the same thing, but you got to get your reps in. I'm not going to preach to have like, I got a formula, I got it all figured out.
Yeah.
No, hell no. I'm just from my school. I'm doing as much volume as I can, and then I'll narrow it. Right now, I'm just focusing on teaching the guitar and songwriting, but primarily the guitar right now. So I get my camera set up, and then I just start doing little mini lessons, clips, examples. Give all the information that I can.
Talk to me about your school, man.
Oh, it's called the Heroes of Music Institute.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right now. I have the course it's an online video course dedicated to helping future generations of musicians. It's the course I'm creating the course that I wish I would have had. When I was starting out, I was very lucky. I had a great teacher in the very beginning. Mr. Burris, Doug Burris at Rock Ensemble. I was
gonna say, yeah, you did. I missed you when you came down here. I would have loved to have gone by that.
Oh man, I was there 2 days.
I
was there for the rehearsal. That I flew in, jumped in the rental, flew to the show, flew to the rehearsal, was warming up in the car. I was getting ready for that for months. Mentally, I hadn't been on stage in a while, and so I was mentally preparing for a while. Came in, did the rehearsal, then the next day did the show, and then drove to Fort Lauderdale and did a show at this place called Kava. Oh my God. Great little like a Kava bar. It's like this great little, I'm kicking myself now because they were so wonderful to me. And then drove to Hialeah and crashed at my mom's house, and then hopped on a flight. Missed my first flight.
Oh wow.
Missed my first flight because I was so high on adrenaline from those 2 shows.
Yeah.
That my testosterone was like through the roof, man. Like I could, and then the next day I just crashed. I couldn't crash, so I went to a McDonald's. I need a burger. I need to. It turns out on Friday night in Hialeah, everyone's got the same idea.
Yeah, right.
I was there anyway. I didn't get to bed till like 2:00. But yeah, I'd love to see you when I come down again. I'll be down there this year. Well, be 2023. My plan is to be down there several times doing performances.
Okay, yeah, man. Let me know. Keep me posted.
Yeah. So the school is designed for that. I'm starting small. I want to collaborate with as many of my great musician friends as possible. Create courses and music ed courses. Music business courses too, because I've had some success in that arena. I've had a sync with a big artist. I've had commercials, jingles. I've dealt with publishing.
Nice.
Not that I'm a supreme
but still, you're making a living at what you're doing, and that's the key.
A little bit of expertise in that area. I've seen big royalty checks, which most musicians walking the planet, they don't have. It's just statistically, they will never see those kind of like royalty checks before, so I'd like to share that experience, knowledge, how they can get it, and the honest truth about like luck versus skill. And
right,
on that topic of luck, you have a song called "It Ain't Fair." Brother. First of all, may I offer up a little suggestion regarding your Spotify thing real quick, brother? Just
yeah.
I was listening to the words. I don't know if they offer it.
They do. So there's a program called Music Match.
Because a lot of people take in music visually, like they'll be at work and they'll see your picture, or but they want to see the words first. For some reason. They'll see you performing. The videos that I put out, anything that I'm singing, I always put captions on it. The words would be great, but these words hit me hard, man. The song "It Ain't Fair." It started talking about they encourage you to go after yours, and
Mm-hmm.
there's this big push like you can do it, but it ain't always
It
fair.
don't work that way all the time. Yeah.
Could you please talk a little bit about that song in particular?
Oh wow. So that was a song written during COVID. There was something that happened. What it was, I won't really elaborate
Yeah,
on too
sure.
much.
Absolutely.
But it's the idea of well, just as the song states, things don't always work out, and the way that we're told, you work hard, you follow the golden rules in life, and do fight the good fight,
Yeah,
and good guys always come out on top.
that's
And at that moment when that song was written, that was just going through my head a lot. It's like, how did I end up here when, by all accounts, I'm a decent guy. I'm a good guy. I
yeah,
don't screw people over, that kind of stuff. So it was just something that needed to come out of me at that moment. Just because of certain things that were happening in life, and it was cathartic in that way, to put that energy out there, and hopefully someone else can connect to it and be able to get some sense of catharsis from it as well. But yeah, man, yeah. I was like early 2020 was like rough, and it wasn't even COVID related. It was just like, wow, what the hell is happening right now? How did I get here? But yeah, having written a song, it's just like, just like a weight off your chest, you know. So yeah, that's
yeah.
how that ended up.
I,
Yeah, wait, man, that's humbled and flattered. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's you know, I bring that up because I think I'm looking at that gold plaque on my wall. That there was so much luck involved in that. There was so much luck involved in that. I moved to New York. Me and my brother decided to start a band together. He had done a movie in Italy years before. He had gotten a modeling contract that picked him for this thing. And then when I moved here, I was like, "You did that? Really?
right.
You did that? Like, wow, you probably have some publishing money floating around there for you. We should make some calls." I was like, "Oh, like who do we call?" And I was like, "Well, I got this friend in Miami, Christine, that worked at Pure Music." He's like, "Oh, I know her." I was like, "Let's call her up." And then we called her. She's like, "I don't know, like maybe, I don't know, like, I know this one music manager that you could call that maybe he might know somebody." We call him, like, this is all in 20 minutes. This is all happening.
Right.
Calls this music manager, like, "Yeah, like I did this thing." And he's like, the music manager's like, "What? You did what? You were in a movie and you did the music? And who
Right.
are you? Who are you? You have a band? Like what?" Guy came down to meet us. We were doing shows locally, came down to see us, was like, he's like, I want to sign you guys. I got to bring my buddy involved. Brings his buddy from college, who's connected with Kurfürst and Blackwell, Gary Kurfürst and Chris Black.
Chris Blackwell. Yeah.
They and they end up signing us like, like brings them to, like, this is when reps came to shows. I don't know if they come to shows anymore.
They don't, bro. I just had this conversation with somebody. I won't sidetrack you too much, but I went over to UM. I don't know why we went there. I think I was just flyering or something
Yeah.
because I'm still old school, right? So I go over to the Rathskeller.
Yesterday, I put a flyer for my
You know, we go over to the Rathskeller and I look at the bulletin board and see if this name rings a bell. I see, like, the kid, one of the kids, like maybe one of the students there, he's a guitarist and he's like putting together a band, looking for a bass player, da da da. I'm like, oh my God. We passed the WVUM, but I see on this kid's flyer, he's got John Tovar as a contact. And I'm going, oh my God. And I'm remembering John Tovar, the Marlin, Oski, and everybody. So when you said about people coming to shows, right?
Yeah.
If you wanted to manage or rep somebody, you wanted to be there. Not necessarily that they have a million followers on social media or whatever, but that you could come and you could see that energy in that room and connect to it, right?
Bingo.
So go ahead. Back to what you were saying.
Well, that manager, those two guys came and saw us. They're like, well, we think we can get you a deal. The guy's got to come check you out. So Gary Kurfürst, who had signed, unknown to me at the time, had signed Jane's Addiction, Talking Heads, Melissa Etheridge, like he came down to our performance at this tiny little club called Izzy Bar. It's long gone. And, we were...
Where was that? Is that like by Delancey?
Yes.
I think I was at that show. I think I saw you there. Yeah, I think I saw you. I think I saw you guys. Yeah.
We had we had a wild drummer, T-Bone. I'm still good friends with him to this day. I love him to death. We told him, it's like, listen, brother, we know you have a gig in Jersey earlier that day. We'll pay for whatever it is, transportation you need. We just can't have you late because they're coming to see us tonight.
Right.
He ends up getting caught in traffic. He's unable to come at the time on our downbeat, right? At our downbeat. So we end up going to the drummer from the band before the band. So everyone's freaking out, right?
Right.
The place is packed. We have no drummer. We're a Latin funk band. And everyone's freaking out. And I just start laughing like the Joker. Like, I just start laughing because it's so insane. It's so insane. And I was like, what about the guy that played before us? And they were like, and we went to him. It's like, hey, man, would you mind doing this set with us? He's like, what kind of music you guys do? It's Latin funk music. He's like, oh, I don't play Latin music. He's like, dude, it's just 4/4. We'll pay you a case of beer. He was like, okay. So he came up, counted it off, and from bar one, the whole place got out of their seats. Now, I say all that to say, Gary saw all of that because it was a small place. There was no hiding the fact that our drummer was nowhere.
Right.
And we went and talked to the other band that was celebrating after their gig. He came up to it right after the show. He came up to us and said, you could have made any excuse. You could have made any excuse to not get up there. And you didn't. You found a way. And he's like, I want to work with you guys.
I love that story, bro.
Chills. I'm getting chills.
I love that story. I love it.
But that's, how lucky and prepared, how lucky you have to be for all of those circumstances to align, like just getting him into the room.
Right.
So I want to talk to like players about that, because I want all of like my young musicians to be successful. And I always operate from a place of like, it's an abundant universe. And do you think the stars in the sky are arguing about how much their infiniteness is expanding forever? There's room for you always. But also talking about like, there's also seasons, there's a season for this and there's a season for that. And, like, I just want to kind of have that discussion within the school. So that's kind of where I think a lot of my expertise will be involved in, is not because there's a lot of great schools out there, but when the pandemic hit, I was doing a lot of in-person teaching. Mm-hmm. And here in New York, I was on the subway for 6 hours a day going to school.
Yeah.
Bro, I was eating so much. I was eating between $1,200 and $1,400 a month in just food.
Yeah. Wow.
On the way to a lesson, grab a bag of chips.
Yeah.
And before the lesson, grab a sandwich. Okay, lesson's over, Chipotle. Do that for a month, 5 days a week. you know, because I was teaching private students and at a couple different schools. And it was just racking up, man. So when the pandemic hit, I all of a sudden had an extra $2,000 a month.
Okay.
And then I started teaching online. And then I was like, oh my God, wait a minute. My quality of life improved because I wasn't on the road 6 hours a day.
Right.
In New York, you know, New York City.
Yeah, for sure.
Man. It's no joke. And now it's crazy. Now it's crazy, you know, like, so my quality of life improved. Like songs that I'd always wanted to finish, I was able to kind of get to, you know, and finished an album, much
Right.
like you, a double album, which I found, I was like, great minds think alike.
Yeah. Listen,
And
it's like you said, you know, just a
no,
pause for a minute. The opportunity to recalibrate, you know, and obviously COVID was awful, you know, for a lot of people in a lot of ways. But what I was able to get from it is just that, you know, this is an opportunity to recalibrate. I woke up every day, I was mess around with songs, you know, mess around with different chord progressions, come up with something. You have it in your head. We had the time that if I have it in my head, now it's not, oh, let me sing this into the recorder and I'll do it when I get home, or I'll do it da 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 da. No, it's I'm gonna get up, strum on the guitar, bang around on my roads. You know what? Just keep working on this, keep working on this, and finish it. Oh, you know what? Let me add some harmonies to this now, you know, and just keep going, scratch this part, come back to it. And that was what I got out of COVID. And like you said, the quality of life thing really resonates because when we left New York for the first time to go to Argentina, that was my thinking. My thinking is cost of living there is going to be different. You know, I'll still have access to American dollars. Argentina was a growth period for me, much the way COVID was, because I was able to just play and write, just play and write. And all the musicians that I knew there, they either taught or they played, which reminded me of what we were doing in the Square Egg when we first started. You know, the guys were fresh out of so they were either teaching or playing. So that meant noon. I mean, I got this idea. What are you doing? I'll be there in an hour.
amazing.
And you can, you know, bang this stuff out. So you focus now on, like you said, quality of life, and focusing on the things that, as artists and musicians, bro, this is how we speak to the world. You know, this is, you know, me and Oski used to have a running joke. I'd be in touch with him, you know, over the years, and I would just be like calling him, "What are you up to, man? Ah, you still doing that stupid little music thing?" You know, because that's what other people say to you. You know, you're gonna get a job, or you still doing
Family,
that music thing?
family said,
Right, right. You know, and it's just like, I'm always gonna be doing this. Maybe I'm not gonna be doing it at the levels I used to be, or whatever, or defining it by your versions of success. Maybe it's teaching someone else. Maybe it's producing something else. Maybe it's composing, but you cannot hide this. It's who you are,
yeah.
you know? But go ahead, as you were.
I don't even remember what I was talking
Oh
about.
no, you're just talking about
I'll remember.
during.
I remember this. I'm
Mhm.
gonna clip what you just said, and it's gonna go viral.
Well, what you were saying
Tell you
before.
when the last time I said that about the first interview I did with Michelle, I said that's gonna go viral because I posted it on my social media. It's gotten 10,000 views and climbing. That was like 5 days ago. I checked where it was like at 10,000 views, and it's just going up and up and up and up and up. She shared what you just said right there resonated with me, and it's going to resonate with other artists that hear that message for the first time. You know, you don't.
Bro, if I remember what you were talking about. You were talking about quality of life and COVID, how it gave you an opportunity to slow down. If you want to come back to that, we can.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, when I knew you, man, years ago, you know, I know we are where we are now. We're men, we're adults, we've been through so much, you know, we're parents. What I liked about you when I met you years ago, you were this fucking kid that was just hustling, but not for hustling's sake. because there are people who hustle for hustle's sake, and there are people who, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Like
No,
this, I tell people to this fucking day, the relationship that we had, and we probably didn't realize it at the time, the relationship that we had as artists, that I had so much respect for you. But so you never hustle for hustle's sake. When I met you, you were like, it was just like what I was just saying. I got this music, I got to get out of me. How can I get it out of me? Where can I go to get this out of me? All right. So when you're talking and you're networking, it's always, how can I get my music to you? How can I get my music to you? And like you said, we've seen different iterations of each other's bands when we played together. And when you just told me the story about the Izzy bar, I'm going, of course that's fucking Richard. Of course. You mean to tell me that Richard's gonna not play? No, Richard's gonna go outside and see the kid beating on the fucking buckets and go, bro, you're a drummer. Come on. But I don't play Latin. I told you, don't throw the Latin part. It's funk. It's universal. Get your ass in and let's play.
Yeah.
That when you're telling me that story and you said, I'm just like, of course, that's the fucking golden story because that's you. Oh, the bass player didn't show tonight. Don't matter. We'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, you seize the opportunity to do what you can, because if you don't, what else is there? You can't give up the opportunity to get that creative energy out of you, and that's what I've always appreciated. I always tell people to this day, I listen to like the Ice Queen songs. I don't remember the name of the album, but I remember a lot of the songs. But I'm like, I just fucking love playing and doing shows at Shep. We're doing a show Friday, Saturday night at the Marlin. And I'm just like, I don't know if it was the same for you, but I'm just like jostling to see who's going to go on first. Because whoever goes on first is setting the tone. You can't follow Shep with some bullshit when they just fucking El Ladrón. Like, you just fucking blew the roof off, and I'm gonna come up here with some fuck shit. Nah, I gotta bring it. You know what I'm saying? And it was so fun because it was like, I remember when I moved to New York, and for maybe like the first 2 years, I didn't do anything. And my partner that I was living with at the time, she's like, why aren't you doing stuff like when you were in Miami? I was like, because I need to vibe the scene. I want to go out and be inspired. You know what I'm saying? I want to go and see different bands to kick me in my ass and go, boy, you better turn it up. And that's what I liked about, the era that we grew up. And I'm sure it still exists. Sure. I just got to find those places. And before anything else, I'm a fan of music. Obviously I'm a musician myself, but I'm a fan. Being a fan is what allows me to do what I do, because you're soaking in and you're inspired by so much. Yeah, man. But as you were saying before, quality of life and during COVID, you just had an opportunity to step back and focus, recalibrate. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, you again, that's going to be another viral clip. You just did what you just did. Yeah, bro. With I've always, there's people that inside that you feel that you compete against, and there's people that you ride that are your peers that, like Diddy and Jay-Z, Diddy always looked at Jay-Z as like, no, I don't want to compete against you. I want to help you. I want to be an ally to you. And they've always have helped each other. They're very public about that. Like, I never wanted to compete against this person. I wanted to be their ally and be of service. And I always felt that about you and all the things that you're doing, which is, and I felt that about with my brother as well. Like, that's why we did such great things. Ever since we were little kids, I was like, if we're on the same team, we're never going to lose.
Right.
I said that as a little kid. If we're on the same team, we're never going to lose. And when we were shorties, like 9 and 8, 10 and 12, 10 and 11, we would play high school kids on basketball, and we'd get smoked the first game.
Right.
And after that, we'd crush them. High school kids.
Wow.
Like, That's how powerful my thinking was when we're on the same page. And I said it. I said when we got into a band together, I was like, we're gonna be signed in 6 months. We're gonna be signed. We're gonna be. The first question I asked is like, what's the biggest venue we could play for the kind of music that we're doing here? He was like SOBs, but I mean, like that's crazy. It's like blah blah blah. You don't understand, blah blah blah. I was like, we'll be there in 6 months. We were there in 8 months. We were playing there.
Wow.
And then we were signed shortly after that.
Yeah.
Like, so there, you have to pick your battles, and you have to pick your allies, like, who are my allies in this? Because, like, you need people that you trust that can tell you the truth, like I call you up, I say, yo, this album is dope. These are, and I'll go into specifics.
Yeah, no, listen, when I got that text this morning, I go out for my little morning walk around the neighborhood. I'm a crazy old man. I take my bucket and I pick up the trash. And I was telling my lady, I was like, fucking Shep messaged me this morning. And she was like, that's the shit you live for. I was like, yeah, because these are my peers, who've seen my evolution, but also I know they grind it too, and to have that respect, like, that's always the most fun. Something else you just touched on when you talked about, being on the same team. So when I reached out to Nacho, we're sitting and we're talking, and I'm just chilling. I'm letting Nacho talk, because I told Nacho, I don't want to sell anybody on playing with us, bro. I want you to have the same energy that we do, just by virtue of you feel it, right? So that was kind of like you said, it was the same conversation whereby if we're all on the same team together and we all have the same vision, it's gonna go where we want it to go, and the cats I got with me now, I feel that way about, and I've felt that way about everyone I've ever played with, hence they were on the team with us. But Nacho, bro, he's just like, bro, because he's been here, he's been around, he knows, all the different venues and the players and everything,
Yeah.
Me, I'm recalibrating my mind to think in these terms of, all right, well, you got to find out who this promoter is, who runs this venue. He's talking about, getting this one to sponsor this, that, and the other. And I'm like, my brain has to get back into there, because for the last, I'd say 5 to 7 years, I've just been focusing on composition, and, performing is just something we do. Yeah. Well, yeah. Cause thank you very much. The performance is just second nature. That's just, we've always had that, it's a muscle that, you don't stop using. It's never going to atrophy. But the getting out there again and, hustling the media and that stuff and letting people know that you're out here, I got this great thing I want to share, and then balancing that with the humility of, not wanting to be in people's faces and forcing it onto them. But yeah, I don't know. I get excited just talking to people that I know we speak the same language, in that way.
I mean, it's funny. I think a lot of artists share that sentiment. It's funny about not wanting to shove it down people's throat. What's funny though? Who's not shy about shoving stuff down our throat? Coca-Cola, McDonald's.
Yeah.
And not to say that we need to act like those individuals, but I think it behooves an artist to remember that it's if you've created a work, if you've spent 5-7 years studying your craft of composition, honing these particular the promotion of that record merits the same attention, because business, which is what we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. Business can be artistic as well and can be creative. And you can just shift that word of promotion. You can change it to connection. How do I connect this work with the audience that will appreciate and love this? How do I connect it? In our day, it was hitting the street and literally finding the people, energy, and like, I think you're gonna love this. I think you're gonna love this. Just like anything, it's like, you're right. Like, once you're on stage, it all comes back. But I do think that everything before can atrophy. You know, like once get the muscle of connecting this, the promoters, this the business language, in that just because you did it at one time, and I say this to myself, you know, because I'm not actively performing. I'm like, right now I perform, this is my stage, so to speak. This is my stage. And so those things can go away. It could be something that you did at one point, but are you doing it now? And then, and this, the new economy, if you will, connecting with the people that want to hear this, that can hear this. It's about finding that, and in that respect, it's another muscle. It's another skill set, you know, like this, what we're doing right now. This technology has been around for a while, this video conferencing. I didn't even know it existed prior to COVID.
Okay.
No, but this I'm making a video about it right now. Actually, this video conferencing saved my ass during COVID, man. Like all my students, all those students that I was traveling to, like when COVID hit and everybody was locked down, I called them all up. I was like, I turned my little studio into like a little broadcast thing, and and they 99% of them shifted online with me, and that's
okay.
Up. So it's a new skill set that I needed to add. Now I've been learning video editing to do the courses, and now I'm like thinking that I needed to hire it out. It's all, you're doing it the right way, dude. I mean, you got to get teams. In the absence of teams, you got to get the sweat equity in. You got to build those skill sets.
Yeah, for sure.
And promotion, like digital marketing, which is what I think benefits all of us now. It's incredible. Like, I don't know, I'm sure you've heard this a bunch already, but I'm sure, and please, I don't mean to sound repetitive, but your music, I don't know if you have a TikTok account, but it would just lend so well to that platform. It's such an artist-friendly platform. You know, you could do snippets of live performances. You could just talk like how we're done. There was a guy, young fellow, man, like talking about. He's like, they're so smart, these kids. He's like, he opens his video with this. He's like, any industry secrets that you thought were true that turned out to be wrong, let me start. He's like, these record execs don't know anything about what they're talking about. He's like, I did this song that I recorded in my closet over here that went to number thing on the country hits things. Like, all these record companies called me up that week. All of them. They were like, we see what you're doing. We're really impressed, right? I dropped another single like a few weeks later. Didn't do what the other song did. They went ice cold on me. Nobody was returning my phone. I put out another song. Guess who's ringing up my phone again? It's like, none of them know anything. I'm like, this song that I'm like people want to take meetings with me. Like, I was like, what? Like, where were you? Because he was like, when he got those calls, he was like, yeah, I would love to like get on the machine, so to speak. And then he was like, then you all disappeared on me. Like, he's smart enough to know, like, oh, you guys are fair weathered friends.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I was like, that's it, young man. That's exactly what they are, you know. And he was like, just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep grinding. Just connect with your audience. Build your own audience. The means of distribution are level, but you got to work it, and you got to be good. You got to.
That's true. Yeah.
Good. And these new platforms, these shorter form things. There's space for that. There's space for longer form things too, man. Like, I'm balls deep into the YouTube thing right now, man. Like studying it, like I would study composition, like how you spend. By the way, I want to jump back right now to Mr. Lee. I want to jump back, and
Bro, I'm catching up with you. Like we do this. We do this like once every 10 years. We dig into like a long conversation. Yeah. Remember the last time we did it was on the phone. So I'm fine, bro.
2 hours. I remember that. That was 2 hours. Yeah. I want to talk about your piano playing, man. Like that. I went to in 2017. I went and did a show with some of the boys, my old lineup, and
Mm-hmm.
Huang. The other guys, they're very proud musicians. But Huang, he's like, he was a nonprofit guy. Now he's a full time musician. He's retired. He's just a full time
The
musician.
bass player, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
The first thing he said to me, as soon as we finished our first song, he's like, "Holy shit, man, your guitar playing has improved so much." Like he just blurted it out. He just was like, "Oh my god, you can solo now!" Like, oh, like I didn't know. Like you were here, now you're here, and
Yeah, yeah.
I laugh at that. I say that because I feel the same way about your piano playing, man. Like
Thanks, man.
you at the church. I saw his church. I was like, okay, he can play some chords and he can accompany himself. But
Right.
now you're at a whole other level now, man. How did that happen? How did that happen?
Um, just repetition. A lot of it. So I don't think
You have a
if I'm
voice.
being honest.
I'm sorry, let me interrupt you. You have a
Sure.
voice now on the keys.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
how did you develop that voice on the keyboard?
If I'm being honest, I think a lot of it is just really understanding a lot more about theory. Um, Understanding theory helped me to understand a little bit more about voice leading. I mean, not, I don't know, for your audience, we nerd out on some music shit here,
Yeah,
but
that's what it's for.
really, really, really digging in and understanding that. So the evolution of a lot of it had to do with, there was once upon a time where I would call Brian or call Mike and I would hum something and I would go, yo, let's do this song, doom, 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 move, right? Baseline for move. And over time, when I moved to New York, it was me calling Mike, leaving Mike a voice note. Then, life happens and everyone's not always as available as I want them to be. Sure. So then it's like, all right, I got to learn to do this myself. So I'm messing around. And then when it came to this record, it was just a function of when I'm writing the songs, being there and being in touch with the whatever the piano or keyboard is and composing them and really just digging into theory, the ability to, because I'm not like a theory guy, but having an understanding of what's going on versus, because it's one thing, like when you saw me at the church, I know I'm playing a C major. I know I'm playing a D minor, or G7 or whatever. But understanding the relations to those things and understanding, key signatures and all that music theory stuff, it really helped me in understanding different things as far as voice leading and moving through songs. I remember when I first started playing piano, like me and Mike were doing something. We're playing like the bitter end, and we're rehearsing. And Mike always thought it was interesting that I played with my left hand, right? Because most piano players play the bass in their left and they play the upper registers in their right. For whatever reason, I just voice stuff with my left. And now I learned to voice with my right as well. So you're playing extensions differently. And then also talking with actual guys who study piano playing, well, you'll know from keyboard if you play like a C major 7, how you want to voice that. You put the C over here in the bass, and what do you want to do with the others? Do you want to double up and put the G here as well? All that
B in
stuff.
the bass,
What's that?
Do you want to put the B in the bass?
Exactly. Exactly.
Go on.
So and also understanding the relation of, okay, if the bass is playing the B, there's a funny thing I don't remember if it was over COVID. It was probably over COVID. Yeah, it was, because I remember where I was at the time. I was watching like George Harrison talk to Dick Cavett. And they asked George about like what chord he was playing. He's like, well, I'm playing in the A minor 7, but you'd have to ask Paul because Paul is playing something else and that renames the chord, right? That shit never made sense to me until I understood this. And we were at a rehearsal once and we're doing, I was teaching the piano player how to play what I'd recorded. And I was like, yeah, I just play like a A7 and an A minor 7. Maybe I said something like that. And Mike just blurts out, don't fucking pay attention to him. It's an F major. Because he's playing an F in the bass, right? And I had no idea what the hell he was talking about until years later. You know what I mean? But again, and I still want to get better. You know, I want to get to a level where I can play solo shows, not because, you know, of any other reason, but just accompanying yourself. Like, you know, if you're just playing guitar, it's different. That not having the drums behind you, not having the bass behind you, not having someone else, you know, play some different voicings on the piano. So I want to get to that level, and you know, it's just grinding it out and getting there and having a conversation where Richard Shepard says, "Man, you've gotten better." So then you're like, "All right, I'm not going to be down on myself anymore," because you know how when you're doing something, you're like, "Fuck," and you're just frustrated, and it's not where you want it to be. But to have someone else subjectively come along and go, bro, what are you doing? You're getting better at what you're doing. You're like, all right. Then you inspire yourself to keep pressing forward with it. But yeah, a lot of it's come from just being hands-on with you know, just being there with the instrument, you know, grinding out.
I'm glad you said what you said, man, because I too, well, I had a very, I'm only just starting to talk about this like publicly. I had a very strong fear about music theory in the very beginning. When I was first starting out, I had because I was already performing from the jump when I got into music around 16, you know, performing in my school and little bands. Then I got around to like university and I took my first like music theory class.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I was placed higher than I should have been, but immediately the teacher started talking about the circle of fifths and the relative minors. And I was like,
it's intimidating when you hear it from and the school that we're coming from, right? We come, okay, fuck it. Let's go all the way back 20 years. All of the cats that we knew that we played with went to music school, right? So one of the reasons that it was important for me to learn this at first was so I can speak the language, right? Because when I hear them saying, you know, G flat 9, flat 5, whatever, it's like, oh, here they go with Swahili again or whatever the fucking language, you know?
Yeah.
But we just had a rehearsal, I think it was last Tuesday. And just in between breaks, we're talking about something and like, oh, you know, play that last chord that you hold out as C7 alt, right? And, you know, the piano player is like, yeah, but don't bother playing the bass because the bass is playing it. You know, I get this. So we're having a conversation amongst each other. It was me, the bass player, and the piano player. And we're like, man, what chord is that if you take the C out? So we're breaking down the different ways in which you can name it. Oh, is it a major, this, that, or is it a diminished? And you know, we're just talking all this shit. And it's like, wow, you kind of know theory. You know what I mean? And because remember, I speaking for myself, and I assume you as well from what you were describing, we're coming from the feeling of it. I remember when Sebastian first transcribed the catalog of stuff. And when I finally met Juan, and Juan, well, not met, but when we started collaborating online, he's like, man, you're doing all this modal mixture and you're doing all this chordal substitution. And I'm like, yeah, sure, if that's what you say. Because it didn't mean anything to me. You know, I just know that if I play this on the piano and I play this chord next, I like the way it sounds. I like the tone of it. I like the texture of it. I like the movement of it, you know. But having those conversations and one thing Mike always said to me was don't bog yourself down with the theory. And I understand what he meant now, because sometimes if you know the theory, you're so wrapped up in composing via theory and you forget the feeling, which is what makes it Richard Shepard, which is what makes it Lee, which is what makes it Square Egg, which what makes it Navigante, which what makes it Juan. You know, it's good to know the theory. So if you need to explain it or break it down or maybe correct something, maybe you've got a flat or a sharp where it shouldn't be, you know the theory for that reason, but you don't let the theory drive you. You know, it's like when you're mixing up that food and that sabor, it's just good because it's good.
Right.
You know?
It's not it's the car, but it ain't the driver, you know?
Right. Exactly. That's exactly it, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel you on that. You know, I remember, man, like when Brian used to make scores for if we ever had to sub somebody in, I just look at it and I'd be like, the fuck did he just write here? You know, when you're looking at this stuff.
That's what we do.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it's a fun journey. It's a fun process, and then also to be able to look and see where you are, you know, and from where you came from, but then also understand that yes, you do put in the work to refine it. Don't take the shortcut. You know, I wouldn't say that I was taking shortcuts before. I was much like you. I was intimidated by that stuff, you know, and the intimidation is what led me to not dig into it as much as I should have. There's an ex of mine that we reconnected. When I say ex, I mean from like 20 something years ago, 25 years ago. I recently found out that she was like a piano prodigy. Like when she was like 6, 7 years old. We lived together for like 4 years and the whole nine. And I remember growing up in my 20s and I lived in Atlanta for a little bit, you know, and I started out doing, you know, hip hop. But I was just always interested in other sounds. Like, how can I incorporate these things? And we were talking recently and I found out that like she was like this piano prodigy, like she was 6 years old. Her family was having conversations about sending her to Italy to study. And her dad was like, I don't want my kid gone away from, you know, at 6 years old in Europe. But I was just like, you mean to fucking tell me that I live with you all this fucking time and you never sat my black ass down and talked to me about piano? And I told her, I was like, you held me back. I'm joking with her. I was like, imagine, you know, 20 years ago, had I known and understood, you know, some of the things that I do now.
Yeah.
But it happens when it happens. You know, at the time, I wouldn't have been
whatever
who I am.
Happened couldn't have happened any other way.
Exactly.
Why? Because it happened.
Exactly. And I also embrace that on a spiritual level too. You know, just outside of art, which is still spiritually connected.
Absolutely.
But you know, we joke about it where it's like she's like, I had no idea that you wanted to do anything, you know, outside of what you're doing. I was like, bro, I literally flew a guy who worked in a call center with me in Atlanta. I flew him to Miami for like a week to stay with us in our studio apartment so I could sing ideas to him. You know, because it's back to what we were saying. It's in you. You got to get it out. At the time that I was doing some of the things that I was doing, you know, when I was doing hip hop, that was the means that I could get it out. You know, I took the tools that I had to express the ideas that I had in me at that time. Now I know a little bit more and I hope to continue to learn. So the tools that I have now available to me are different. So you're going to get a Maybe Now album, you know, you're going to get And It Ain't Fair. You know, you're going to get that because again, the tools are refined. The driver never changed. He's just driving a better car.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I read, when I was a teenager, I read How to Win Friends and Influence People. I only remember one thing about that book. never be the smartest guy in the room. And that's how I
Oh,
approached my bands at that time. And then I started meeting Fabio was the first one. I met Fabio Patino. He was the first one I met. I was like, I played him some of my songs. He was like, he's like, man, those songs are great. Then I met Tony. Then I got Tony involved. Once I got Tony involved, then we got Juan, and it was like it was it. But I'll be totally honest with you, Lee. I had no idea what I was doing on the guitar. I had no idea what I was doing. This is pre-internet. I couldn't Google things.
right,
Like I couldn't like I had like I didn't have books. I had no money.
right. There's no tabs and
Nothing.
all
I had
that
no money
stuff.
to buy
Yeah,
books. I had no. I knew that the info was in the books, right? I knew some teacher had it, but I was like, I didn't. I didn't have money. I was broke, you know. Like, so I just was doing things to kind of entertain myself, and then I just started finding stuff that I thought was cool, right? I was just trying to make sounds that I say all that to say. So I started surrounding myself with musicians that were infinitely better than I was technically at the time.
hmm
I never felt inferior to them because I was providing a livelihood for them. You know, I was seeking out work, making
well,
connections.
and these are your tunes as well, you know.
Yes, yes. Um, that all had, you know, all I'm not. Let me not paint for anybody listening. Let me not paint the picture that I was this pillar of moral integrity at the time. I was a young man just trying to get a break, hustling his music, trying to get it in front of as many people as possible. I did some scandalous shit back then, like, I mean, that's all to say. When you brought up the music theory part, years later, years later, I music theory sets you free. It sets you free as long as once you learn it, you just let it go.
Right.
You have to absorb that information.
That's what Mike always told me. That I mean, like, because again, here's a guy who studied and he went to UM. He took all the jazz theory and all that stuff, and he's just like, don't let it hold you back.
Yeah. Yeah. He gave you a big pearl of wisdom there because, you know, understanding the form is great, but being able to make the form malleable to what it is you want to express is the
Right.
ultimate. And a lot of times, people that have intuitive connections with music, like yourself, they're going to find their way as long as they're left in an environment that's encouraging and nurturing of that curiosity. Think of your child when they I look at my daughter, I'm like, oh, she's going to be great. She's going to be awesome in whatever it is she wants to do, as long as I do my job and provide the environment to cultivate her interests. And all of us come out like perfect. And if we're pointed in the right direction, like what we can flourish into is infinite.
To your point, I still make this joke now, and it's something I've always learned, and I'm fortunate. I think both of us we can say you're fortunate to have rocked out with Smurf and Juan and Fabio and those guys back then. I know I'm fortunate to have rocked out with Mike and Wolf. Like Brian, the relationship that me and Ignacio talk about that too. For all intents and purposes, none of us knew how good we had it. You know what I mean? Because Nacho's around our age. He's probably a few years older, but he's just like, bro, what we were fucking doing back then, I don't think nobody appreciated it. But he's not talking about the audience, he's talking about us. We took for granted that we played 7 nights a week. We took for granted that, oh, Bird Hines wants to put you in a commercial and fly you to Orlando to shoot some stuff. You took for granted that you're playing at the West Palm Beach Amphitheater. You take this shit for granted, right? Right? And over the years, one of the things, like you just said, I when I'm working with musicians, I appreciate having worked with those guys. I wouldn't have learned the things that I learned without them. But I carry that same philosophy. I want to be the worst musician in the room.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not awful.
Yeah.
So that means if we're all badass, here comes that team thing. If this team is kicking ass, oh, it's 6 rings. Only way we won't get the six feet is if we take a year off to go play baseball.
Bingo.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, that so many life lessons. I mean, and as you say, as young men, we had our egos, we did what we did, but we're where we are now. And
Yeah.
I don't think we could be where we are had we not been knuckleheads and gone through the things that
Absolutely. I wouldn't change. If I change one thing, if I were to change one thing about any of my past, it would collapse everything that's happened now, including
Absolutely.
my daughter. So it's always important for musicians to keep that in perspective. Like perceived failure is a part of perceived success. And I put perceived because I look at my studio now, man, like I'm like, wow, I always wanted paneling on the wall to like, to absorb sound, I always wanted paneling to absorb sound. I always wanted NS10 monitors, like,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
I always wanted NS10 monitors. I always wanted this little monitor control thing for all this, like you said it perfectly. It comes when it comes, it comes when it comes. And it's important to keep that. If I'm not against having goals, like every artist should have goals and things that they want to accomplish. But if you don't love the process, I don't understand why do it. If you don't enjoy, like, for example, sometimes if I'm in a zone and I'm working on a song, 10, 12 hours will go by. I'll forget to eat, and for some people that could be torture. You're 12 hours in one room. You don't go,
right.
Like that might be like, that sounds crazy. I'm like, I'm in my happy place, man. I'm in my zone.
Yeah.
And I think if you find a process that you love, that's, you got to nurture that. And that could be a gauge or a gauge of what you can deem success. Like, what do you wake up to? Are you excited to wake up? Bro, I wake up at 4:30 a.m., 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes. I can't wait to get the coffee on, feed the cats, and get my ass in here and get to it, man. Like,
yeah.
I love it. I think that is a big mark. And also too, I look at the road. We're at a place where we can look at the road behind us and we're like, wow, well done.
Yeah. It's,
okay,
you've got a perspective.
That was a little effed up. That was a little crazy. Don't do that again, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that was insane. That was insane. Maybe try something a little different there. Like, that's all part of it. That's all part of it.
No, man. When I came back here, that was a good part about reconnecting with Nacho, because Nacho was there. He was all the way through it. And every time I've come to Florida in between, I've always made sure to find out where he was, touch base with him and see how his mom's doing. And, having it's similar with Mike too. I called Mike, I think on his birthday or his anniversary, his wedding anniversary. And where I was just driving in the car talking with him, and I had him on the Bluetooth, and we were just reminiscing. I was driving, I forget where I was going, but he's like, bro, you remember when we did such and such? I was like, oh man, and you're just going back because it gives you perspective. Not that you're stuck in the past, but it's an opportunity, as the kids say these days, to give yourself your flowers. Like, shit, man. We didn't do so bad for ourselves, and there's still the future. We're still alive. We're still young. We're
You
still
got to
healthy, and
give
you keep
people their
going.
flowers while they're above ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I'm
Yeah.
talking to you, brother. Like you did. I know what it takes to finish an album. You release a double album, like I listen to it and I'm listening into a very controlled environment here.
Hmm.
Like, I'm hearing all the details. You got to give people their flowers because one day they ain't going to be able to get them.
Yeah.
You got, and like, I think it's also important to when you can celebrate the road behind you. It's, man, that gives you real confidence about stepping into the future. You're like, oh, I did it then. I
Right.
can do it again. I wonder if I
That's
can.
exactly it.
I
That's
wonder if
exactly it.
that's real confidence. That's not bravado. Like I'm stepping into the business space with my school, right? So I'm
Hmm.
like, I don't know shit. I gotta study. I gotta study. I gotta study. I gotta. It's like, oh, this is a shyster. It's business is the same as music. There's no shortcuts to greatness. You look at you, man. You've been on your piano for years. The span between me seeing you at the church and hearing your new album today, that's like 7-8 years more, maybe,
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. Like you're anatomically, you're a completely different person. Every cell that's in your body was not in your body 7 years ago. That's in your body now. And when you made so that you feel confident and proud of the record because of the road that you've traversed to
Yeah.
create it. That's true confidence. So, when I'm moving into this space, I'm studying different figureheads about, online promotion, business, infrastructure, blah, 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 blah. One of the guys that I listen to, his name's Alex Hermosi. He's like, this is what worked for me. I have nothing to sell you. I'm not selling a course. I'm not selling this. I'm like, I want you to be rich. I want you to eventually make $3 million, and then you can come work with me and I'll teach you how to make it to 10 million. Right. So I'm like, I want to listen to this guy. And one of the first, he talks like a lot about that. He's like, fuck bravado, get your reps in, suck for a while, and just do it over do it over a stupid amount of time. And eventually you suck so little that you're actually good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tom Brady brings in coaches that specialize in spiraling the football from all over the planet to improve his throw 0.5%, 0.2%. He'll unlearn everything he's done so far and then relearn something that could potentially improve him 5%. He's doing that now. This is a guy with like what the most
Like 7 rings. Yeah.
on the planet, like football, so this is the game of time, man. They asked the 80-year-old maestro, why do you still practice 4 hours a day on the piano? You know what he said? He's like, I'm starting to see a little improvement.
Yeah, man. No, for sure.
It's these kind of I think it's important to celebrate your the big wins, the little wins, especially if they're in a rearview mirror, and share them with people. It's important to share this. Like, look, I did this worked for me in this particular. Maybe it could work for you. It could be the difference in helping someone. The one thing about when I really wanted to like learn my theory, started teaching it. It made me learn in a different way. Like, oh, I got to teach this. I got to teach this music theory to a homeless kid, to a kid that's coming to this program who's in a shelter right now. I have to teach this in a way for
so
them.
You make it accessible to them.
They have to know it today. Today they have,
right.
And it's got to be working for them, and that person is no longer in a shelter and has a job and married, like, not that music did that, but music played a role in
undoubtedly. Yeah.
their lives in a different way. And the more I've studied teaching music, especially to anybody, young, old, it changes your brain chemistry.
The discipline, the critical thought, the analysis of everything, when Juan and I were working on the arrangements, you know, the orchestral stuff. Again, Amit, she'd be sitting and listening. She's like, Juan's like your musical husband. You guys enjoy talking about this shit all the time. But like you said, you know, it's well, you know, you're thinking in extensions. You know, you're given this. There's these, you know, 4 notes or whatever that are going to make that chord, or 3 of them, and you're thinking of how are things moving together sonically. You know, what's their relation to each other? Well, relative minor, you know what I mean? What's the relation that these notes have to each other, you know, tonally? So it definitely makes you think differently. I think I've had this conversation with Amit before. I think it works that way for anyone, any creative, because you're starting from a blank slate and you're making something. You know, I have a running joke that I don't trust anybody that doesn't make art. You know what I mean? Because their minds aren't moving in the same way. And that's not, you know, from a sense of arrogance or anything, because everything is art. You know, I think you know, being a parent is art. You know, you're still creating something, you're shaping something. You know, so yeah, it definitely moves your mind in different ways.
Yeah, I think music theory is wonderful. Is it essential? It's a yes and no question. I think it can liberate you, but I think it also can. It's not it's not super essential as long as you can get your hands on creating what it is what interests you. But I do think it can illuminate the things that you really love about music, and it can give you Trent Reznor said that he's like, you know, my grandmother was on my ass about my piano lessons. You know, and I am internally grateful for her, because when I'm sussing out this G chord or like, you know, resolving to like this C9, you know, like I'm not thinking about that.
Right.
But I know it's happening in the background.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, that's what you want. That's what you want. And Billy Joel said that too. He's like, learn as much theory as you can and then forget all about it. I was like, what I heard that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, what is he talking about? I don't know what he's talking. What does that mean? Like, don't you know when you know something, don't you just know it? Now I know what he means. He's like,
yeah.
Gobble as much of it up as you can, put that information into your CPU, and then just let it run when it needs to run. When it needs to run, like that's when you bring it out, you know?
Yeah. No, every person that I've seen that I respect as a musician, you know, I remember, so Prince's estate started releasing, you know, a lot of his stuff from the
where you're
vault.
going with this, and I'll tell you why in a second.
A lot of the stuff from his vault, and it was funny finding out from like Eric Leeds or Wendy and Lisa, like it would be false to say that Prince didn't know theory. He knew theory, but in a practical, applicable way, where when he started working with Wendy and Lisa, then you can hear, you know, some of that stuff. Or when he was working with Claire Fisher doing those arrangements and stuff. But there's no substitute for just what he just did. That was just a feeling. You know, I remember growing up, one of the running jokes was that Barry White couldn't read music. You know what I mean? And if you think about the shit he did, you know what I mean? Yeah, man, just like
I think a lot about Barry White when I think about you. The timbrely on your voice. I think like whatever he was dialed into, whatever his vocal chain was, whoever was his engineer, if I could bring that guy into your life, like that guy, like the timbre of your voice, you know, and when you talk about Prince and all that stuff, you know, again, you know, you talked about parenting, exposure, creation. That guy grew up surrounded by jam sessions. His mom was a classical singer. His dad was a jazz pianist. There was jazz around him. There's high information music around him all the time. You know, his engineer of like 20, 30 years was like, I never heard him sing a flat note. Why? Now that I teach music, I know why. Because when you're exposed to that much high information music from young, your neural chemistry is so wired to like hit the note on the thing, it's like
Yeah.
he probably had perfect pitch or something very close to that.
I was working maybe a year ago with a friend of mine, Michelle Moore. Wonderful, wonderful singer. I think she's classically trained. So she came by, and I was like, I want to work more with my voice. I want to work more with my voice. And she's like, dude, you have pitch. You have pitch. She's like, all you really have to sort out is controlling your breath so that you don't lose a note or go flat or sharp when you're not trying to, but you have pitch. So when you talked about high information, I never had any clue with the square egg. Like if I look back at like a song like A Letter from You, for me, I grew up with the rhythm part. Just what I needed was another lonely metaphor to tell you just how I feel about you. I grew up with the rhythm, like how much can you get into that little bar? But the tone was there. Might be off a little bit here or there, but you intuitively have it in you. And then when I worked with Michelle and understanding, she played on the piano, and she's like, yeah, you cover from here to here. You're covering, 2 octaves if you really push yourself to. But it's just understanding your breath and having that, again, that muscle, that repetition, because it's stuff that I haven't necessarily always used, except if I wanted to. And then if you want to use it, know how to what's the word I'm looking for? Know how to execute, and I'll teach you the ways to execute that, but you can do it already. You just weren't aware of the various times that you may have moved in and out of something melodically. Wow. But yeah, man, it's really, it's fun, like you said, to take a step back objectively and go, all right, yeah, we did this shit. We were doing, because I'll go back and I'll look at something that like Wolf composed, 20 years ago, and just look at that and go, wow, all right,
Amazing.
who's doing some crazy shit there?
What a talent.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
my first album. Wolf's on my first album. He's playing flute.
Yeah, no, I recently went through your catalog probably about like a month or two ago, and I was just like listening to all that stuff. Every now and then I'll sit upstairs in the bed, and I'll just like go through it. I don't know what it was, but I went through that first album, and then I just started going through the other stuff. There was the video that you did standing in front of what looked like a convenience store or something like that. You had your little hat on, your little bolero.
Oh, Summertime?
I think it may have been.
In the summertime, I saw you in the dark. Or was it in a club like with Radio Mundial?
No. It was outside. You were outside.
Yeah, it's summer.
So it was summertime. Yeah. I remember it as you sang it. I didn't remember the name of the tune.
Yeah.
But yeah, even that, man, like your fucking voice, bro. Get out of here. Get out of here. I tell you, it's like watching you guys do your thing, the groove. I talked to Meat about this. I was like, yeah, Richard and them were Latin funk. Okay. But to me, I was just like, those boys fucking put it in. When you sang in Spanish, my Spanish was shit, so I had no fucking idea what you were singing, but I still felt it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My friend David Haskin, he's retired anesthesiologist. He's like, I don't know what happens physiologically when you switch from English and Spanish, but they're like two different people.
Okay.
And I've heard that for years. I've heard that for years, and I get it. I do get it. I think intuitively I attack the vowels very differently in Spanish. There's this other thing that comes out when I sing in that language, as opposed to in English, where I definitely soften the vowels for some reason. Like it's a strange thing.
Yeah, I think that happens with a lot of people. Because, for example, British singers, even though they're still in English, their enunciation's different too when they sing.
Different, yeah.
You
So
get that with a lot of soul
like the way
singers.
Liam Gallagher cuts into his singing, like the way he attacks his vowels, it's
Hmm.
like, oh, that's so cool. I could never lean into those R's like that, or you know, uh, but it's, I mean, that's where English comes from, right?
Yeah, 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 for
So, yeah.
sure.
Bro, shift. It's great. I always love, celebrating our past wins and the road behind us. But I want to shift the camera a little bit more back to today. Play guitar, because you brought up Prince, and when I heard play guitar, I was like, this motherfucker is, what's going on? He's channeling some Prince here, man. What's going on here? What?
Um,
How did?
so
First of all, who is that on guitar?
that's
Number two, why didn't I get that call?
Martin Schubro. That's my homeboy in Buenos Aires.
Excellent,
So
man. He's excellent.
what that was during COVID. You know how you have to come up with different ways of inspiring yourself to do something, right? So I was sitting on the couch and I just had the acoustic and I'm strumming this A and this G, just going back and forth. I was like, you know what? I want to do another 2-chord song. Michelle Moore had talked to me years prior. She's like, lyrically, give yourself more space. She's like, you're still doing that rhythmic thing. She's like, give yourself space where the words can just sit for a little bit, and resonate more because you're not giving so much information. So, all these different things that I've learned over the years and talking and working with people, I'm trying to put together into this thing. So if you think about it, play guitar is just, again, another 2-chord song, right? A to G, A to G, all the way through.
Wow.
But music nerd wise, it's an amixolydian. So the melodic scale, da 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 da, and the melody in the when I wrote the melody for the guitar chords, again, thinking, how do I write something melodically that's gonna stick, right? That's gonna become this earworm, and so on and so forth. But yeah, so that was there's in my writing process, I go through phases. There will be times where I'll sit with the guitar and I'll be in my guitar phase and I'll just be noodling around and messing around with stuff. And Play Guitar was one of those songs, obviously on its namesake, that I was in that guitar phase. But I started out with a very specific idea. Something I've been trying to do a lot more with myself is discipline, to say, here's what I want the song to be about. Here's where I want it to go. Here's the structure I want to give it. I find that I'm more productive when I approach it that way versus just having some abstract lyrics in my head. And you know what I mean? Like if I hum a melody for a chorus or something like that, then okay, that's where I started. Build around that and being sure to stick with the theme. Because for me, I'm still coming from what I did when I was young as a rapper. Lots of lyrical information, because that was the thing we grew up. It was like, oh, I don't like R&B or rock or whatever because they stretch it out. We want to give you all the information. You got a hot 16 where you're just fucking 500 words in a bar. You know what I mean? But this has been more about, okay, well, how can I make this song relate to the audience from a mood, and decidedly telling a story or having a theme and making that theme really resonate and driving it home. So that was a fun tune to write because, again, as I said, starting with the challenge of, all right, let me do this song with just 2 chords and see how much emotion I can put into these 2 chords, and I'm probably paraphrasing a lyric even as I say that, yeah, so that was a really fun tune, and writing it in, I guess it was probably in 6/8, and so many different things came together from that. listening to A Perfect Circle at that time, listening to some of Prince's posthumous stuff, and just really like leaning into a song that I also thought would be fun to perform live too, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, those lyrics, that you mean that's one of your most in my opinion, it's one of your most visually like compelling songs, because I guess because you're being very sparse with your phrasing, you're letting those words hang. It allows the listener to like, oh crap, I'm in the room with these two people. Oh, she's got the guitar. Oh, she's like, play that guitar. You're like, you allow the listener to become the fly on the wall during this little back and forth between you and this person. It's like, I was like, woo boy. Go back.
Yeah, that was something. Yeah, right. That was something that I remember.
Get me out of this room. How did I get
it? Right. I shouldn't be here. I'm a voyeur. But Michelle Moore and I, we had worked on a project like right probably before I left New York to Buenos Aires, and she's somebody much like you that I respect, like artistically, and you know, I just love picking people's brains, you know, and she goes, that was one bit of advice she gave me. She's like, you know, you have some really great music. She's like, I'd like to hear you more. Like you said, just let a lyric hang. Give the words some space. You know, let them be powerful in their simplicity. And that's actually also just another way that I remember listening to different guitarists, you know, that we revere so much, talk about that. You know, everybody wants to shred the tech. We did a show, you were probably around at this time. We did a show at Billboard Live, and Yngwie Malmsteen was like the headliner, right? There's a bunch of us that played before him. He's playing, doing his tapping, and he'd periodically throw out a pick and like fucking rock star God shit, right? But I'm watching like Sign of the Times, and I'm watching the live concert, and Prince goes into I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man. And just like a note would just sustain for like 2 bars. And just letting it breathe and going, man, you know, and you listen to soloing from whether it's a sax or whatever, and you listen to it that way, and you're going, you know what? Even in this conversation that we're having, there's rhythm to it. It's not, and you think about that in context of even how we communicate.
Bingo.
As a pause to let something set. And then we'll come back and you know what I mean? And we communicate in rhythm, and again, reminding myself that that's music as well, because ultimately we're conveying ideas to people. Absolutely. Right? So we speak in rhythm, we walk in rhythm. Everything we do has a rhythm to it. Yeah. So you give something time to breathe. And that was something that was important for me to learn.
Yeah, for anybody.
Or reinforce, you know, when it came to composition.
I mean, when I was years before I was a musician, when I was a little kid, I heard Tom Petty's and the Heartbreakers song "You Got Lucky, Babe." Mm-hmm. And I remember when it got to the guitar solo, down, 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 down,
right,
down, down. I was like, "What the hell?" There is a genius in simplicity. And make no mistake, Mike Campbell can shred with the best of them. But a guitar solo is another voice communicating ideas. And I think there's everyone loves to shred, and it's impressive, and it takes
the technical skill behind that is
technique, dedication, resiliency to be able to develop those skills to be able to do that. But like we said earlier, it's great to learn all that stuff and then forget it.
Yeah.
You know, and then let it come through whatever, because I don't know what a shredding solo would sound like over play guitar, you know.
Yeah.
it's maybe that's not the right place for something like that, you know, like
Yeah.
some of these, I really think that that I don't know. I lost my train of thought. You know, like
Nah, it's all good.
I think that whoever that song, that guy that you found that's playing on that track, I think he did tremendous service to that song. You know, the that melody it sits perfectly in the track.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he Martin, he and I played together when I lived in Argentina. He's my guy. You know, we clown each other. I'll be like, I got another song. You know, I love it, baby. Send it to me. But yeah. When I wrote that melody, that was the thing because it for me it was, you know, like da 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 da. Everything about it, the way I approached it was intended for like a sing along. You know, I could so the final like ingredient of the song. I remember when I brought Michelle over and I let her hear it, and she's like, "Bro, I can hear that singing like an Irish pub, and everyone's got their beer in their hand." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I reached out to Juan, and I was like, "Can we get a choir together?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll get some people together." And he got, you know, I think it was like four or six singers together in Buenos Aires, and we had them, you know, do layer different parts because there's the pulse, there's a heart, 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 you know, and because we're thinking of it, you know, Johnny Ray's in the pub with the friend, you know, you're approaching it that way.
Yeah.
Because again, from a
Soccer stadium too. Could be a soccer stadium singing that.
yeah, right, exactly, exactly.
Not just
But
the pub.
it's in that context of, you know, the from so musically, everyone always says that Mixolydian reminds them of a Beatles song,
Mm.
right? So in my mind, the Mixolydian scale, I'm thinking of, you know, like you said, a British pub or a stadium or whatever.
Mm.
But it's fun. It's fun to break these things down and look at them that way. But yeah, no, Martin, he's my guy. He's a hell of a player. There's Martin. There's another guy, Sasha, who I go to a lot. He's playing on like shit. He's playing on a couple tunes. I just can't remember them offhand, so I don't even remember the names of the
Do
song.
you plan on doing is will all the performances of these songs be with a live band, or will you do any like playback stuff?
No. It'll all be live band.
All live. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We're doing shows here or there in Miami. And yeah, I love live. I love live. One, because I like the audience engagement, but I also like other musicians and how they interpret stuff. I think that's fun. There's something we do with Play Guitar Live where so it's just the two chords, but Asani Dawkins, he's plays piano with me now. But like we go into this after the bridge and what would be going into the end, we go off into this vamp and we just cycle these four chords and we open the song up and let him solo over it, and it builds this like totally. We're gonna do a show on the 9th. I'll send you the audio, maybe even the video because Amit's gonna record it, and it's just like that space because we still have the G and the A in there, but I feel like it's a B minor and an F sharp minor, and it's just like because we go soft and he's just like just touching the keys so beautifully, and then we build up and then we just rock out again. Ooh. Then we go back to the A and the G. But it's fun because again, for me, I've been listening to these songs for 2-3 years now, you know, but then taking it to the band and them going, "Hey Lee, you know, what do you think about if we try this?" And I'm always open to you know, their input and how we can make the song more engaging. And also for me, it keeps it fresh and exciting for
Exciting.
me.
It's
You know
exciting.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. I love playing this stuff live, man. I love playing it live. You know.
Yeah. When you hire when you work with really great musicians, it really cuts down on rehearsal time too, you know.
Listen,
You know.
there was a time. This is a funny story too about rehearsals. So for me, I just jam out at the house. You know, I go in there, I'll play the track, and I'll make sure I'm playing everything and singing along. But there was a time, I would say, for like a 3 month period, we'd rehearse once a week. But I didn't have any shows lined up
Hmm.
because my thinking, I remember Nacho and I talked about, and Nacho was like, "Bro, let's just get them tight first. Let's just get them tight."
He's smart.
So
He's a smart
around
guy.
the 10th, 11th rehearsal, they're like, "Man, are we going to start playing?" And I'm like, I want to fine tune that one part right there, where we change key or whatever. And they're like, "Man, don't worry about that. We're going to get it." And I'm old school. I'm like, "Nah, we got to get it now." And they're like, "Right now we're rehearsing and we're not rehearsing for anything. When it's time to do it, we're going to have it." I was like, "All right,
Mm.
I'm going to test your theory." And sure enough, they did, because so this is a mixture of like, the piano player is a church guy, which is another whole skill set, the way they hear things. Then there's and they all went to music school. The bass player is also a church guy. Um Drummer used to be in a death metal band, right? But he gradually changed over to playing jazz and R&B, and hip hop. So they're bringing all this different stuff together, and they're hungry. They just want to play. So I'm like, all right, let's play. And it's come together. Some glitches here and there, but not something that can't be corrected. I feel confident with them. I feel like, because going back to what you said, I fucking hate rehearsing. I hate rehearsing, because for me, I know the songs. I've been doing some of these songs for years, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, yo, you guys shed this stuff at home. We have one rehearsal. We run through every song once. Let's go. You know, and that's pretty much where it's been. We played in August, and we hadn't rehearsed again and since just last week. But they knew everything, and I'm like, okay, I can fuck with this. I like where this is going. I like where this is going. And too, because I was telling them. So when we used to play in New York, we had this badass trumpet player, Brian Newman. Check him out. He plays out. He's like, I think when Lady Gaga was doing her jazz stuff, he was her MD. But we would play at the Blue Note. And I joke with Brian about this now. Like, we're doing shows. We played the jazz in the gardens, and we play UM or whatever. And Brian would always be like, "Man, you got this fucking badass horn section and you're holding us back." Right? And Mike would just be like, "Bro, there's so many moving parts. Everybody just needs to play the part. Here's the horn stuff that needs to play." Because if we all start stepping on each other, it's going to sound messy.
Yeah.
Right? But with these guys, because I haven't brought in the horns and strings or windsets, this is just the rhythm section, right? And I always let them know, because jazz guys approach music differently than we do, or I can't say we, than I do, because I'm still thinking parts. But then you might hear somebody step on something, where if you step and he step and the guitar and the piano are both trying to step, you both might be stepping on the vocal. So I let them know, let's get the parts. I'm going to give you room to breathe. I'm going to give you room to breathe. And that's how we come up with this other energetic stuff. Because a song is what? 3.5 minutes, but we'll let you work out your jazz chops. We'll let you guys dig into it. And the fun part about it now is I have the capacity to keep up, because once upon a time, I'm just beating the tambourine while these guys are,
Yeah.
are blowing each other off. But so now it's what's up, Hudson? What's up?
I need to go out.
No. Amit just took him out. He just came back inside. He's excited.
But
yeah, man, it's a lot of fun to play this stuff live, and that's also something too. Um, that
Interesting thing, balancing out. Like the minute I can't, I gotta be honest because I'm a dick, you know, like the minute I heard that guy say, pipe up and say, like, oh, you got this badass corn section, you're wasting everything. And you were like, we got to learn the parts. And the old me would have been like, can I talk to you outside? And make an example out of him, you know, like hit the bricks, man. Hit the bricks, you know, like this is this is my gig. My name's on the marquee. Like I've busted my ass working on these parts. There's you see the notes on the page. Like if the track needs you to blow, I'll ask you to blow.
Right.
If the track don't have a descarga, it's not asking for you to blow. You don't, you know what I mean? Like
But you know what's cool though? I went to Vegas.
now I would be a little bit, now I'd be like different. I was like, you know what? That's really interesting. That's let's focus on this first and we'll revisit that later. That's
But you know what though? That's something I don't know if I learned that intuitively or whatever. I think you know what I think
well,
I
you
think,
play basketball, right?
yes.
You know how to work a team. Like if you've played like
There's that aspect of it. Plus, I also think there's the aspect of at the time, because I'm talking 15 years ago, right? At the time, I didn't have the confidence musically. I deferred to Mike, and Mike, conveyed that to him. Hey, we're just playing these parts. But having said that, this gets back to our youth. I went out to Vegas late 2019, and he's doing a residency. He does a residency out there. Brian does. He still lives in New York, but he does a residency at the MGM or something like that. And we just go out there and hang out with him. It was good to see each other. Like, I mean, this is I've seen him come up, and it was humbling because his sax player. I remember his sax player too, because he used to come to the shows, and we're just joking. We're like fucking 3, 4 in the morning. We're sitting around the craps tables, throwing back scotch like we think we're fucking 18 years old, right? And he just puts his arms around me and he's like, this fucking guy, man, I remember this guy when I was a young knucklehead. And he's like, he was one of the first bands that I played in when I got to New York, and this is the maturation where we can all look back, and see where we are now, because jazz has a different approach. It's a lot of playing and that kind of thing. But I can guarantee you that when they played with Gaga, there was no, yo, why are you holding us back? Right?
none
You're
of
playing at MGM Grand, 2 shows a night, 5 nights a week. Everybody's got their part because it speaks to the larger
sure
show and the presentation and the presentation of the music, and we all learn that. I one funny story that I have with Mike. We're playing at the 5 spot in Brooklyn, right? And we're done. And I always my attitude was, I'm the musician, I'm the vocalist. When I'm done, you guys got to load your gear. I don't care. I'm over here talking to the ladies, right? This drunk woman comes up and she's like, can you guys play Chaka Khan? I'm like, go talk to these guys. Hey, yo, Mike, play Chaka Khan. I'm every woman for this girl. So I walk off. They're up there looking all angry. And Mike comes over to me at the end of the show, and I'll never forget this. Humbling for me. And he's like, don't ever fucking do that again. And I don't know if you remember Mike. Big Mike's like 6'4". I'm leaning back like, where am I going to hit him at? Like, don't fucking talk to me like that. I'm Lee, motherfucker, But within that moment, I caught myself because he goes, we just did a show. This is our show. Don't send some drunk girl up there to do karaoke with us.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You're right.
The guys that get up, I mean, let me tell you something, man. This musician who will remain nameless, came at me when, in private, like came at me really trying to gut me for partnering with my brother in Radio Mundial. He said, what the hell you doing? You're a star. You got these things. You got this great songs and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, this same musician, like this same musician would bail on me at a moment's notice if they got offered something else, that maybe paid a little bit more. I was alone during that time. Maybe looking back, maybe I could have brought the guys in a little bit more. Like, I always wanted to share the pie. Let this be our thing. But everybody was like, no, I'll just stay the hired guy, and that was cool. But let me tell you something. When I came to New York and when me and my brother were on the same team, when you have anybody on your team that's ready to go into the fire with you, and that, let's not mince words for anybody listening. When you get on stage, you're putting your nuts on the line.
Absolutely.
This is who I am. This is what I do. And I'm going to show you right now, unapologetically. That's going into the fire. That's heading into the war zone. When you have someone like that by your side, you can move mountains.
Absolutely.
I can do this is powerful. We can do this is ultra powerful. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, Mike was right. It's like, hey man, we're your team.
Listen, when that was
we like what you do. We don't know this female. She could be great, but she's drunk, and we're not here for that. And when you gotta respect your team. I had some bumps along the road learning that too, man. Like, your team, these are your warriors. You are their warrior. You got to lean on them. They got to lean on you. And it needs to be airtight. You can fuck with each other till the cows come home. But when anyone messes with your team, boom, they are on the front line. They are to be destroyed and to be put on the ground. Yeah. My brother always told me, he's like, Rich, what I learned from you was sheer brute force. Like, I will not be destroyed. Because when Radio Mundial was first starting here in New York, man, we would head into lounges and clubs after our speakeasy. No one had heard of us. They're like, who are these guys? Get them on, put the radio on, and people were hostile toward us, man. And we were like, we ain't going anywhere, man. We ain't going anywhere. You want to do this right now? We can do this with the guitar on. I'll smash this on your head. It doesn't. We got no problem with it, man. You know what I mean? We were Axl Rosing it. You know what I mean? Do, man. Whatever you want to do, we're ready. But we're gonna do our thing. We're gonna do our thing. And guess what happened? People were like, "Oh, these guys are not to be messed with. These guys are." And that starts spreading. Like, oh, these guys take their stuff seriously. They care about it. And when you have a team like that, man, that team needs to be protected. There's a reason why Jay-Z picked Dame. There's a reason why Gary picked us. There's a reason. The guys that signed us signed Bob Marley, U2, like James.
Yeah.
They see, like, this is a strong team. This is a united front. That is powerful, man. When you have a group of fellas that are working together, you can start a war. You can start a country. You could start, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's powerful stuff, man. And it's not a little thing that he shared with you that day. It's not.
It's funny because that's something I keep going back to Nacho. When we reconnected here in Miami, that was a lot of what we talked about. And it's not like, reminiscing about, oh man, remember the time we were so blah blah blah. It's that appreciation of exactly what you said, warriors. I know that Mike and Nacho, we're in different places right now, but I know that we're all kids. But we were mature enough to understand what we had, and to this day, like I said, calling him on his anniversary, because I know that meant a lot to him. I was there at his wedding, and, Nacho, I've hung out with him. I make space for him every time I come to Miami. We're all young knuckleheads, but you can look back and you can reflect. And as I say, those were lessons that stuck with me. I love telling the story because regardless of how people see me, that to have been humble enough to have taken that criticism and feedback from somebody that, again, obviously I respect. Mike and I have been,
Loves you, man. He's your brother.
yeah, man. Yeah, we rocked out. And if you can create with somebody for as long as we've created together, and you have your we've had very few lumps. And I referenced that one because it's one of the only ones we've had. I remember just the lessons that Mike gave me over the years. He's like, man, never let anybody tell you that you're not a producer, you're not a songwriter. Never let anybody tell you that you don't know how to make music, because we all had our friction when we were young, about who wrote this, who wrote that, you'd be nothing without this. And it's my chords that make, and Mike, when I started working and when we moved to New York, a lot of the shit I'm talking to you about, I don't talk to anybody about. So it's broadcasting. It's so funny. But
this is all gonna go viral, bro.
Exactly. When we moved to New York, Mike and I took the Square Egg idea to New York with us. And, first we were flying the other guys up. We were flying, Lebos and Wolf and Nacho and I think Sam Levine. We were flying them up at the time. But, it starts to get difficult. So we all just kind of went our different ways, but still have a relationship with everybody. But I started composing more. I think for like the last Square Egg album, I started composing more. And, even with different people that I work with, they're like, yeah, you just approach this differently than we do, just because you didn't have the formal training, but you still know what you're doing. Maybe you're not writing the melody down of the lyrics that you're singing, but they're tonally fitting with what they should be. What the chords are, the progressions of the song. But and it always made me, like I said, Nacho's a seasoned musician, Mike's a seasoned musician, and knowing that I can rub elbows with these guys and be right there in the trenches with them, and we have a respect for each other. I respect the scholastic part of what they did,
sure,
or what they went through, and they respect where I'm coming from, and it marries, and we all make each other better in the process. That to me is what music from every facet should be about. We should, as creators, we should be making the audience's lives better by them listening to what we're doing. And then when we're collaborating with people, we should be making each other better too.
Yeah.
So it's a fun process, man. And going back to the old joke of, oh, you still doing that little music thing? Am I still breathing?
Duke Ellington talked a lot about that when he was coming up. He was like, we'd go to the pool halls, and we weren't really the musically trained guys, but the musically trained guys would hang in the pool and they'd show us things, then we show them things because we were just playing all day long.
Yeah.
And that merge is like what led to his style. He was, like his voicings. I mean, it's like it's revolutionary to this day.
Yeah.
One of my next guests is this guy named Morgan Price.
Okay.
And on Facebook, I asked, he's married to this great singer named Mariela, and I asked him on Facebook publicly. I was like, Morgan, why do I love this Duke Ellington recording so much? I think it's Piano in the Background, it's called.
Okay.
And it's like, this to me, it's like, because I love Duke Ellington. I listened to like so much of his work. I read his biography, Music Is My Mistress. And he was like, this is one of his best. He's like, I would put this recording against anything in the world. He's like, this is one of the greatest recordings he's ever done. That's why you love it. I was like, great. Not deceiving me. I know what I'm listening. But these kind of relationships, I mean, so if Duke Ellington can he's like, if there's knowledge from somebody that didn't go to school, I want that knowledge. If this, what can make this better? What can I do for the guys? What can I do? Like, there wasn't multi-track back then. He'd pay the guys, would come, I need you to play this. I want to hear what it sounds like when you guys play it,
Yeah.
It was like, so I think taking care of your people is you know, yeah, I mean, it's when it comes to ensembles, groups, bands, teams, I think for any young musician listening, if do whatever you have to do to make sure your people are taken care of when you can
Yeah.
when you can take care of them. Like don't make yourself destitute. You know,
Yeah.
if the opportunity comes to really overpay your musicians,
Yeah.
like do it. You know, if you can create
Yeah.
opportunities for them to kind of excel and succeed, because guess what? They'll stay with you longer. They'll want
Yeah.
you know, a financial motivation for a musician is a tremendous motivator. You know, and you're putting your money where your mouth is. You know, that's
Yeah. Listen, as you say, for any young cats, listen, this is their relationships, man. Like, that you have to nourish those relationships because it makes not just you better, but it makes what you're doing better. I mean, like I said, whether it was working with the guys in the band, whether it was watching you guys, whether it was promoters that we liked working with, Vivian took care of us at the Marlin. She fought for us, when we were at the Marlin, and cultivating those relationships. There's a project that I'm probably going to be working on. Well, I'm actually completing it now. There's a likelihood that I might collaborate with someone that I've known for 30 years,
wow.
and I joke with Amit about that, where having a relationship with someone that you've known in the music business that long, and we all have our ups and downs, we have our ebbs and flows, and someone might go this way, that way,
Sure.
but to be able to, throw that away, that you and I can fucking talk, bro, that's a relationship, like to know that there's a mutual respect and an admiration for the journey that we've taken to get to where we are. That's unless you've been a part of that. It's. I remember talking to an ex of mine and telling her about what South Beach used to be like. When we were there,
Woo!
and she just thinks I'm making up stories. She's like, that shit sounds crazy, and I'm like, yo, if you were there, you knew what was happening, and it wasn't just dance music. There was live music. We could go anywhere, any night, and see somebody doing something, and not just South Beach, the rest of Miami, and to have people that experience that you're still connecting with, that they're still growing, and I get to watch your journey and watch your growth, and you watch mine, and still be able to, bro, are you shitting me that we talked for fucking 2 hours like we never skipped a beat? you know, I will say I do regret not having connected in New York as much as I would have liked to have. But again, we are where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, when you talk about the importance of relationships, it's so crucial, man. Like in 2017, I put out this little independent record. I started calling I'm old school. I started calling up people on the phone, like, yo, I got this record, texting people, I ended up talking with my friend Mo Truzman. He goes by the name Audio Mo. He's out in LA.
Okay.
Hustler. I met him when I was 19. He answered an ad in Rag
Wow.
magazine.
Wow.
And he auditioned.
Make sure you let everybody know, like, what Rag magazine.
Rag
Oh my
magazine,
God.
like this little local newspaper for like musicians. And he came out. He answered the ad. He came out, and we auditioned him. And from the first bar, we had fire. From the first bar, it was just like instant chemistry, like electric chemistry. Like, I may have been on acid, but he was not. He was not. And it was just total magic. We ended up starting a band, and we were together for a couple of years. We won some Battle of the Bands down in Florida. Fast forward, that runs its course. We grow up. It's 2017. I put out this independent record. I come across Mo. I call Mo. I'm like, yo, man, I got this record out. Wrong. He called me. He's like, I saw you posted it. I'm listening to the album and the record, man. It sounds freaking beautiful. I love it. Sounds warm, big, rich. Congratulations. I'm like, thank you, brother. I know he's producing out in LA. So I asked him, like, hey man, anything I can do for you? Do you need any help with anything? And he's like, well, Rich, I got this beat floating around to a couple different writers. If you want to take a crack at it, we're trying to get it synced up for this thing because he's deep into the ad sync world.
Okay.
And I was like, sure, send me the track. He said it was my birthday. He sent me the track. The next day I took off. Sunday morning, I threw it into the rare Sunday I work. I threw it into the computer, listened to it. I listened to it for a good long while, and I was a little nervous. I was like, I don't know if I can write anything to this. Listen to it over and over again. About 10 o'clock, some stuff started coming out. 12 o'clock, it was out the door. I sent it to him. He's like, it's awesome. Can you do this little switch here and there? I was like, did a little switch, do a little vowel thing. I need a little chant. I was like, did that. Sent it over to him. I was like, what now? He's like, now you forget about it. Now you forget about it. Forget about me. And like, if something happens, something happens. Don't hassle me with phone calls. Like, I was like,
right.
Okay, adios. 2 days, he calls me later. I'm getting drunk and stoned with some roommates. And he's like, I was like, what's up, Mo? And he's like, don't get excited. He's like, now I'm excited. Like, but I'm excited now. But we got a bite. I was like, what do you mean a bite? He's like the song it's in front of the supervisors. They're listening to, they're making a decision. And I was like, okay. He's like, now I'm gonna call you. Now
right. You can't tease me with that.
Yeah. Now you. Oh. Yeah, I abbreviated it. I'm sorry. It was out the door on 12. He came back. He was like, I love it, but we need to sub out your voice for female vocals. I was like, no problem. I spent the whole day calling every singer I knew. I finally got a friend who was really a cook in there, got her to sing it, coached her through the whole thing. 12 midnight, it was out the door, completed, right?
Okay.
Like, chorus, 2 verses, bridge, out, a song.
Yeah.
And he called me 2 days later. And then he calls me those 2 days later. Don't get excited. We have a bite. Then the next day he calls me. He's like, it's going through. I'm like, okay, cool. What does this mean? He's like, it means it's a couple G's in your pocket. It's a couple G's in my pocket. I'm like,
right.
Great. Awesome. Awesome. It ends up being a national campaign all over the internet. Companies start calling, wanting it on their campaign.
Oh, wow.
Like huge success. When they launched it on their product, it was Neutrogena.
Okay.
The company that used it. When they launched their YouTube ad, it was hundreds and hundreds of comments. Whose song is this?
Wow.
What is this? Who is? They took the video down because like there were so many comments. It was like, I love the predominant comment was, I love how everybody is here for this song. They took the video down. Because I guess because it buried everybody else.
The product.
They started syncing it to different companies.
Yeah.
So that's all from a relationship of a buddy that I had since I was 19 years old.
Exactly.
And then we ended up getting bumped to the front of the line. We had a nice long run up until the pandemic with Neutrogena. Like we're just knocking out like home runs. We kept getting bumped to the front of the line. And, I just treated it like a songwriting challenge. I always wondered how I would fare under pressure like that. Like when you talked earlier about like, I'm going to do a specific thing, these 2 chords. And I love challenges like that because it's a pressure cooker. You gotta have skills to step into those arena.
Yeah.
When me and Mo were doing after that one, we would do sessions where it was a home run. It was a big home run. But then after that, then I was really in the trenches. It was like the next idea was like, oh, I was like, well, let's do it again. Send me another beat. Let's do it again. For some songs, we would crank out, not even exaggerating, 10 songs in a weekend.
Wow.
10 songs, like, because the thinking was like, let's treat it like they're songs, not jingles. Let's not like that. Let's not, because that's how everyone else is treating them.
Right.
Treat them like this is our music. And yeah, it was a bunch of home runs all the way up until the pandemic hit, and then like budgets got realigned. The contact that Mo had with these agencies was like let go of, blah blah blah, whatever, you know.
Right. Shit happens.
It goes back to what you talked about the importance of relationships. You know, it's so crucial. It's so
Yeah, man.
you know, like some bridges you gotta burn, but some you gotta nurture. Some you gotta nurture like a forest. You know, you gotta.
Yeah.
You know.
No, for sure.
Brother,
You know, and
let's land this plane right there, because this has been so wonderful talking with you, man.
likewise.
It's been so great. I'm gonna chop a lot of this. There's again, I can almost guarantee that there's gonna be several clips that are going to go viral, man. And I'm gonna cut them up. I'll share them with you. You can share them. You don't have to share my particular social media, but I'll send them to you if you could. They can be of service to you. You know, they're yours. You know what I do is I put it all into vertical. Like, I don't know if it's on like you on my screen. On my screen, there's me on right side. There's you on the left. But I like crop it, you know, and I make it all in vertical. And then I have an app that does all the captions. And sometimes I'll do a cutaway to your music, your album. Full disclosure, I did a whole reaction video. I have another camera over here.
Okay.
I was listening to your album this morning and I recorded my reactions to it. Awesome. It's awesome. So I may do like cutaways to that. I'm going to do a whole reaction video to your album.
Okay.
And if that can be of service to you, you know, just take it. You know, I'll send you. I'll upload it to Dropbox.
Listen, man, just chopping it up with you and you know, in this moment and reconnecting was in service to me. So, you know, I'm just I can't sing your praises enough. Like, seriously, I you know, I don't want to gash you, but I always aspired to have that artistic hustle that you do.
Thank
you know,
you. Well,
I know you put your feet to the ground and your heart to the music, you know, and that is definitely something to.
Thank you, brother. Well, let me just
appreciate.
Like from one writer to another, from one period to another period, let me just tell you, you know, the whole reason of this call was to acknowledge your creative accomplishments, man, and to celebrate it, you know, and because I know your road. And another reason why I wanted to do this podcast, I've been thinking about doing this show for a long time because I have so many great musician friends, you included, so many great artists, you know, and this is all in the hopes of sharing their story. Think of like the relationships that some people that don't this, they're hearing your work for the first time. They're hearing maybe now for the first time. And I'm not an anomaly. I'm not the smartest tool in the shed. Someone's going to want to go to your first album too. Someone's going to go to your things like, let me hear what the first thing that they did was.
Yeah.
You know, so this hearing the work and the things that you've accomplished there's a lot of reasons why I wanted to do a show like this, is because I'm surrounded by so many wonderful, talented people that gave me an opportunity, encouraged me, that maybe I encouraged. Think of the stories that you shared about Mike today, man. Like that let him know that I, as an educator now of a couple of years, just tell him that I said that I think he's a born teacher. For him sharing that wisdom with you then, how important, I think that clip is going to resonate with a lot of band leaders. It's hard to lead a band, man.
Yeah.
It's
its own, like, you know, its own skill. Yeah.
Its own skill set leading a band. It's its own skill set, you know. Yeah. So let me just tell you right now that you are in your own creative lane right now. It's a fantastic lane. We're here celebrating it today, man. And congratulations, man. I hope the album gives you everything that you want.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'm telling you, when I saw that WhatsApp this morning, I was cheesing my ass off walking around North Beach. Seriously.
I couldn't get to it right away when you sent it, man. You know, like now you know I'm doing a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to get to it at some point.
No, I appreciate that, brother.
God bless you. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Likewise, man. Have a good rest.
You, brother.
Okay.